6:30, and I'm going to call to order the Village of Franklin Council special meeting of Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. We do the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Try not to step on these wires because I'm afraid I'll yank something out.
You're running the meeting. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Chief, could you please do a roll call?
Trustee King? Present. Trustee Salaka?
Here.
Trustee Hansen?
Here.
Trustee Ferris? Trustee Gates?
Here.
Trustee Solly?
Here.
President Goldberg?
Here. Fairly simple agenda today. Anybody have any comments or anything they need to add to this?
Well, I would like to add something. Can we add to have the new village attorney review the charter appointment process? So we have a written opinion about whether trustee Seltzer's seat is up for this November or the following November, because I don't think we ever gotten a written opinion from Peter on it.
So, I think we did. I think the outstanding question, which is how they decide who takes that seat. Because my understanding is that whoever is voted into that seat has a 2-year term compared to a 4-year term. And so, are people specifically running for that 2-year term? I don't know, right? So the way, essentially, let me provide a little bit of the backdrop of what, so we had a trustee resign before the next election. And so what the charter then says is whoever gets appointed into that position has to run. That position's backup. The appointment does not go for the duration of what he otherwise would have served.
It comes up.
If there's an election within 40 days of the appointment.
It was,
That's what
Yeah.
the charter says.
Yeah, like you don't have to do a special election, but you
Correct,
have to
correct.
run that seat.
so now the question becomes, we're going to have 3 seats up that will be up for a 4-year term, but for the position for the council member who resigned, they will only be filling 2 years, whoever gets
But
elected
we
into
don't
that.
know if,
So what my guess would be that you'd have to have separate things on the ballot.
Right.
Yeah.
and that means
There
when
would
people
be-
file their petitions, they have to
You have to
decide, are they running for a
determine, are you
2-year
running
seat?
for a 2-year seat or
That
a
would,
4-year seat?
without looking at it, yeah, that's, I would
Right.
agree
And
with
can
that.
someone run for both?
I don't think so. I don't think you can have your name on the ballot
Yeah.
in 2
No.
places.
Yeah.
You would have to decide, do you want to run to finish out the 2-year term and have to run again in 2 years? Or do you want to run for your own full
And
4-year
who
term?
wouldn't do that, yeah.
Well, maybe someone only wants to do it for 2 years.
Yeah, and then the question becomes, if it weren't that way and the seat went through the full term, then it could be that like every 2 years, 5 seats turn over, and then every 2 years, only 2 seats turn over. And I think the intent of the charter was to have 3 and 4 turn over every 2 years, so you don't have a
That
full
that seat
council.
is still a replacement seat
Yeah.
of the trustee who resigned.
So I just think we need a written opinion on it before the July petitions come out.
This is a November election?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
But
That's-
you need to
that's right.
file your petition in July.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean,
So people would need to start planning
Yeah.
this spring.
sure.
Do we need to have this answer tonight
Oh,
versus
no, we
putting it
just
on
want
the
to take a motion
agenda
that they,
for May?
that he can review it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Give-
certainly I can get an opinion to you before May, to be honest with you.
So are you making a motion
Yeah.
to amend the agenda to do what?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to amend
Are we,
the,
excuse me, point of order, please. The request was, do we have approval of the agenda? You had a question, we got into a discussion. Are we going to act on an agenda item that
Yes.
doesn't exist, or are we going to agree that the agenda's been changed and deal with it in the proper order?
The motion is currently to amend the agenda.
yeah.
All right, then that should be the motion, okay.
That's what
I
I
was
was
about
asking.
to make a
All right, thank
motion
you.
to amend the
I
agenda.
didn't want to go into a big discussion about it before the meeting started.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to add replacement council seat election term.
You want to request a legal opinion
Yeah.
to determine how the replacement seat is handled 2026 election. I mean, this is why I prefer things not done this way. So we have a motion to adopt the agenda with an amendment to include a request or a directive to have the village attorney write a legal opinion to determine how the replacement seat is to be handled at the 2026 November election. We have a motion, and I got a second?
A second?
Motion is second, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Public comments. So anybody that, obviously tonight's meeting, we're discussing the police millage. It's the only item on the agenda. If you're here to speak on that, then wait. Hey, thanks for getting here. If you're here to speak on that, please wait until that time. We will allow, amidst our discussion, a time for public comment. If you have another public comment on another matter, now's the time to please come to the podium. All right, seeing that we have nobody, move on from public comments to new business. So the new business item is written on the agenda is consideration of approval of a police millage ballot language. This is a continuation of an agenda item that our April meeting that we could not come to resolution on the time and needed more time for internal thought, research, and just additional discussion, which are now carrying over to today. As maybe a brief context for those that are watching on television, and nice to have a full audience today, those that are actually joining us. What we're trying to determine right now is whether or not to have a separate millage. When I say separate, we do have one right now, but it's a very small amount of money. But to have a separate millage to help fund or completely fund the police's budget on an annual basis, and to make a determination whether how that, the amount of the millage, and the amount of the millage will be based upon two different schools of thought, both of which have pros and cons, as to how we get to the full amount of money necessary to fund the police. So to give us some history, our charter was founded in the 50s. Not many people here that from that time, and we will have the research when this comes to vote, so we know completely, but in the 50s was the first time the charter was created, that it established how much millage the village council can levy against the residents in order to operate the village. The amount that it currently is right now is 3.5 mils. There were two amendments to the original 1950 charter in that section. One was in the 1970s, at which time we added the ability to levy an additional 1.5 mils for fire services specifically. And then there was an amendment in 2002, which we have to get some context on. I do not know if at that time the 3.5 was increased or whether the 3.5 is the same amount from the 1950s. Regardless, the last time that the village, from a vote or from a charter standpoint, looked at the amount of funds necessary to fund the village was in 2002, because that's the last time that section was amended, and the amount of millage to operate essentially everything in the village is 3.5 mils. We have separate millages for three specific things outside of the general millage. That is, we have a levy for trash, we have a levy for roads. Every time we improve them, we float a bond,
and we have a separate millage to fund the library. Outside of that, the 3.5 mils pay for everything other than fire, including the police, although in the charter, the payment of using that money for police is not specifically enumerated. Over the years, the budgets of the village have been approved, and we've been operating with the ability to have the general fund pay for all the police services, as well as fund all of the village's needs, and still operate in a positive. Over the last, in front of me, 5 to 6 years, that has not been the case. The amount of money that we've been able to levy, particularly after the amount we can levy, is reduced for those who understand how Proposal A and Headley work, but the amount that we can assess on a millage reduces each year, a specific small percentage, but the amount that we can actually tax reduces every year. It does not increase. The amount of value that we're taxing against increases every year, but not the amount that we can increase. In 2020 I was not on council, but in 2020 was the last time, or I would say the first time, that the village realized that the general fund and all of the other ongoing expenses was not capable of funding the police department as well, because we added a small 10-year millage of 0.3 mils in 2020 that expires in 2030. Since that time, the budget as a whole has been greater than the revenues. And of the amount of revenue we bring in on an annual basis, 60% of that goes to pay for the police department, 20% goes to administration, and then the balance goes to pay for everything else that we do, less the other 3 items that I mentioned. So we've come to the point where we have to go outside of the general fund to help fund the police department, so that we don't essentially run ourselves bankrupt, because based on forecasts and taking into consideration the increasing costs of whether it's the police or the administration, but health insurance, pension requirements, and then with regard to our pensions, funding the long-term pension liability that we have. So those are all items that we have to be addressing in the near future. And right now, we've come to the conclusion that something needs to be done to assist in or supplement the revenues of the village, and specifically to help cover the increased costs of the police department. Chief Lawson spent a significant amount of time, has provided us with a long-term budget that takes the current budget out at least 7 years, 7 or 8 years, and gives us a real good snapshot of what our costs are going to be to continue to run the police department in the way, shape, and form that we've always been accustomed to. We've also had, Jody's been, and Rachel have been providing us with data to show how much revenue will be generated based upon different amounts of millages set aside for police, or just millages in general, what that would generate on an annual basis and over that same 7-year period, using current taxable values and, like Chief, formulaic growth of a certain percentage to different costs. There are, when you hear our discussion today, there's going to be several different numbers bantered about with regard to the millage that we are proposing that will be allocated only to police use. And any millage that is ultimately put to the voters and then approved, it is a maximum amount that can be levied in any given year. It is not the amount that is going to be levied. And that also goes into the school of thought of what you're gonna hear in some of our discussions later, and I'll kind of brief us on in a second. But essentially, that's gonna go to supplement. There's really two ways that we're looking at it. We've asked the administration, Jody, Rachel, to run numbers and show us what would be generated or what it would take to have an available amount of mills for police services only over the next 10 years, so that at any point in the 10 years, or when we get to essentially the 10th year, we are still generating enough revenue out of that millage to pay for police services without going into the general fund at all. And in doing that, that obviously would free up money in the general fund. That's one way, that's like the far extreme, which is, and the number that we've been using, and you're gonna hear in this discussion, is 4 mills. 4 mills based on anticipated revenues, anticipated taxable values, based upon chief's anticipated budget. In the last year, there would still be, again, like a $20,000 surplus, but there would actually be, the millage would completely fund the police department till the end. And then you can take that 4 mills and work it back down to any number you want. And that number that we've seen numbers working it down from 4 all the way to 1.75. As you ratchet it down from 4, there will be some point in that millage in the next 10 years that the millage alone will no longer be able to fund the police department, and we will again begin to have to use the general fund to supplement. It'll be the reverse, but it'll be the general fund supplementing the millage. And we've been crunching and looking at these numbers, and they've been, we've seen various versions of them. Like I said, 4, 3.5, 3, 2.5, 2, all the way down as low as 1.75. What you're gonna hear us discussing today, and there could be more than one motion that gets proffered, is do we do the full extreme, which is 4, or I guess to use the opposite, the least extreme, which is 1.75, where we're essentially within the second year already tapping into the general fund to assist. And if that's the way we want to operate in order to, and you'll hear arguments both ways, in order to help control the amount of money that can be drawn overall, to limit the amount that can be drawn overall, to limit the amount that can be spent on items other than the police department. That is part of what we're going to discuss. So I'm going to leave it at that. We left the last meeting with a motion on the table that had been supported to do the entire 4 mill request on the ballot, which after discussion, it looked like we were really not ready to vote, so the motions were withdrawn, and we decided to reschedule this meeting to allow everybody time for internal reflection, an opportunity to speak to those residents that they speak with. But we took a week and 2 days. So we're basically back 9 days later, and hopefully today we're in a position to come up with one plan to take to the village residents to determine their desire to do what we're requesting. So, there's two ways we can proceed. I personally would like to, I'm a believer that you, you start at the top and you work your way back. So I personally would ask Dan Ferris, who made the motion, if Dan would be willing to make a motion again to request the up to 4 mil levy for police services, which I had seconded. And then we can have discussion, or if anybody really doesn't want to have any more discussion on that matter, then let's just go ahead and call the vote. Let's see where we stand on that item, and then we'll know that we're not at the full-blown take care of it itself, and we will debate and discuss which hybrid model we want to go with.
Real quick question.
Yep.
When do we want to take public comment on this?
On this one, we're not. On this one, I just want to get it out there and see where we're at. I think when we get into our discussion piece, yes, we're gonna,
I thought we'd held public comment
well,
before.
all right, let's, all right, and before we do that, when you say public comment, are you saying public comment for people to come up and give us their thoughts on the matter without generating discussion? Because I'm not ready to open it to the floor for the people, for us to have ongoing debate when we still haven't completed our own discussion. So if it's, hey, yeah, I've been thinking about this, I've been paying attention, I think it's a great idea to go this way, you'll still have an opportunity to speak again later on, but
But if your motion passes, when would the public be able to talk?
fair, very fair. All right, then we'll withdraw them again. If you want to start at public comment, then let's just do that then. Let's just let anybody who wants to speak on the matter, before you've had an opportunity to hear what we're talking about, if you want to address us, and if whatever motion does not pass, and the discussions keep going on as to each motion, I will still allow people to come up and have up to 3 minutes to speak. So you're not going to just get one shot by speaking now. But if you do have specific questions or opinions or anything that you want to address, please, let's hear it now.
Nina Downing, 30645 Bruce Lane.
Nice to see you, Nina.
I was here at the 2002 request, and it was overwhelmingly attended. I think that everybody here, those of you who were here at the time as well, everybody felt that one of the biggest draws to living in Franklin is the safety that we have. The men and women who serve us are exemplary. I think if you look at the police report, guess what? There just isn't much going on. And that's because of our police. They're able to hire qualified people that are exemplary in what it is that they do. They're at all our events, keeping us safe. We know that times are going to get tougher in the next couple years. It's evident right now. And I feel as though it's our duty to provide them with what it is that they need to give us and maintain the safety and security. Most of our kids can go out and play and not worry about it. But how many times do you look in the news and all these terrible things are happening? It's not happening in Franklin. It's not happening in Franklin because of the safety and security that our police force provides to us. I strongly support the maximum amount that is requested. I do have a question though. Can the SAD amount be increased to help absorb some of that? I haven't heard that addressed. But whatever it is, the technology is changing, that costs. But that technology, again, helps support the police in keeping us safe, keeping us informed, and knowing that Franklin will remain as it is, someplace where our kids can go out and play and not worry about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina.
My name's Rick Kozlowski. I live at 26480 Woodlore. Council President, trustees, village representatives, Chief Lawton, my neighbors and friends. I'd like to read a statement I prepared. I'm getting of age that I can't remember things off the cuff. So. My wife and I are 42-year resident property owners here in the village of Franklin. We raised our family here, as many of you currently are or have. Like my neighbor Nina, I believe that the highest priority that we enjoy as residents is our public safety. I firmly support the council's efforts to provide a separate millage for its police department to ensure our continued protection by, in my opinion, is probably the finest police department, not only in the state, but certainly in Southeast Michigan. I also strongly support the millage requirements of the fire department. In my view, public safety as provided by the police and fire departments, protecting our lives and property, are the most critical aspects of the quality of our lives here in Franklin. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Good evening, Council.
Nice to see you, sir.
My name is Dan Roberts. I live at 26620 Woodlore. For those of you who may not know me, I was the chief of police here for about 12 years before Chief Lawson. I will echo just about everything Rick Kozlowski just said. He said it very articulately and much better than I could have. And I will say, though, from a chief's perspective, from my perspective, it will be much cleaner if the police department budget is taken out of the general fund and all of it is funded by a separate millage. From my perspective, having done the police department budget for 12 years, I never knew what at the end of the year was going to be taken out of my budget and used for other village functions. I'm not saying that that was wrong or inappropriate or anything like that. It was just very difficult to know that at some point during the year, maybe, the village had a priority and needed to move money out of the police department budget. And that is because, as was mentioned earlier, the police department controls the largest portion of the general fund, right? And I think when I was here, it was more like 70%. I think somebody said tonight 60%, something like that. So that's interesting. But from my perspective, I think it's much cleaner if there is a separate millage just for the police. I also think, as a resident here and having been in and out of the village since 1965, millages tend to pass much cleaner if it's just the police or the fire department and nothing else attached to it. Because by and large, thanks to great residents like Nina, they vote to support the police and fire departments. And sometimes they don't vote for the other aspects that are in the general fund because they become political in nature. Maybe it's a sewer system problem or a sidewalk problem or whatever the hell it is. But if it's just a clean police or fire or public safety type millage request, generally speaking, I think you're going to find widespread support for that. So I would echo Rick Kozlowski's statements that I would support having the millage at the highest possible rate. And I will do anything I can to help in that regard in getting the residents to see that. I'll take calls day and night to help with that. We do not want to lose our fantastic staff. We don't want to be seen as the ones that are, have the lowest salaries or the worst benefits, because we will lose our great officers to other communities. I mean, there is a fight every day. I'm still involved in this realm. I work for the Oakland Police Academy now, and I see it where there is, fights between police departments where they're stealing from Peter to pay Paul every day because officers will jump ship if they see that one department has better benefits or better salaries or something like that. So we want to be able to hire and retain our good people like we have now. And we want to be able to also be able to adjust that if we need to during contract negotiations to move it up or address all of those issues. So I'm kind of rambling. I just wanted to put in my 2 cents worth. I'll be probably back with a few more questions technically about how this is going to work. But I just wanted to say that for the record, unless you had some questions of me. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Linda?
I'm Linda Novak. I live at 27300 Scenic Highway. And I am also pretty much a lifelong resident of Franklin. I'm also serving as a member of the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board, and I am a Realtor in Franklin and have been for many, many years. I want to take a moment to express my complete support of the millage requirements for the police department. Personally, it is what's made Franklin wonderful for me. And from a professional perspective, I can tell you that safety is really one of the primary reasons that people want to be in this community. Our police department is not only highly professional, but they really go above and beyond. They actively participate in all of our community, and they're a true part of it. That's something very, very special, especially at a time when across the country and even globally, trust and connection between communities and law enforcement is very often strained. It's something very special that we have here. It is exceptional. We should be protecting it, supporting it, and investing in it. For those reasons, I strongly support the millage, and I would also mention that in the last meeting, you all very kindly approved the master plan. And our safety and the integrity of that community is a very important part of what you all approved. So thank you. It's a great place to live.
Thanks, Linda.
Good evening, Heather Midlowski, 30585 Birchway Drive. Not only am I a resident, but my husband is a lieutenant with the Franklin Bingham Farms Police Department, and I know all of you, you do a fantastic job, and I'm not going to be redundant. I wholeheartedly agree with what everybody said. But I want you to know that I listened to the last meeting in its entirety. I couldn't physically be here. And what stuck out to me is the passion for this administration, which you guys painstakingly, specifically the hiring committee, this team. And also, I don't know everyone that was on the finance committee, but I know Rick David did a fantastic job bringing in layman's bias. But I would suggest that you go with the recommendation of the team that you have enlisted, because that's their professional opinion. I feel like the data speaks for itself, and I would fully support the 4%, or 4 mils. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Anybody else? All right, anybody want to have any discussion before I go and see if we call the vote, or do you want to just?
Yeah, I want to have some discussion.
Okay.
Just based off of responsiveness to all of the feedback that we received. So a couple clarifying points, at least from my perspective, but I think it's shared by others as well, is that the discussion tonight is not whether or not we plan to fully fund the request of what Chief has asked for his police. It's how. I don't think that there's any request for numbers or proposals or to look at it in saying that we need to cut back on what the police is spending on. So again, it's not a mechanism of the police are going to be here. The services that you receive will continue. The incredibleness of the staff is the exact same. Regarding the consistency, I want to be clear that whatever we pass for a millage, whether the police would receive the maximum amount, a future council could come in and not draw down that full amount. So we're never going to get to a place of perfect precision where there is that guarantee. it still comes down to policy considerations, which is why I personally stand and believe in a consistency as much as we can have, which is to look at numbers with an expectation that that we draw down the full amount of the millage every single year. So I would like to see us say that the millage that we're taking to the residents, we can say with certainty will be drawn down every single year, rather than an ambiguity of, well, we'll make the decision on whether or not to draw the full amount. And we'll go through, I think it's important that, again, we go through what that means numerically from an annual surplus when we do those type of approvals.
Good?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the whiteboard just because it's easier for me visually, because as we were last meeting, I'm not a numbers person. So to the point that we were making last meeting is, the what, I think everyone agrees on, right? Fully fund PD. Okay, that's not in question, right? I should put a check mark. We are going to do that. The question is how, okay? You either do single source funding, right? Which is millage only, or general fund only. Or you do a hybrid, which is GF times police millage.
Plus.
Oh. Okay, so there's, right, and this is like, imagine hybrid, like diversifying your portfolio in stocks, right? You're not gonna just put all your money into one stock. If that stock fails, you know, you would be out of a lot of money. Hybrid is economic stability, okay? So, does anyone know how many cities in Oakland County do a police millage only funding? 0, okay.
So you're saying of all of the counties in Oakland
All the
County,
cities in Oakland
how
County.
many single source fund just from a police millage to
Yeah.
fund their police department?
Yeah.
0,
0.
not a single one.
And you can correct me if you find one that does. So, general fund only, right, this is like being on. Hybrid, this is Birmingham, right? This is Royal Oak. This is Bloomfield Township. Because this offers the best stability in a Headley amendment, or a Headley rollback city. Because it protects the police against economic volatility. So the hybrid approach, where you use both the general fund and the police millage to support the police department, gives a political body less of a slush fund, which no one wants politicians to have a slush fund, right? We could buy a fleet of luxury cars because we have all this extra money. And it also allows that money that's in a restricted police fund to be used for other things if it needs to. So it's not whether we are going to fund the police, it's how best to fund the police to align with our priorities of governance, economic stability, financial transparency, and basically predictability to the voters and to the police chief. So all of these equal 4 mils, right? You can reach 4 mils any way you want. Right now, we're reaching it with a general fund and a very small 0.37 mils police millage. But you can get to 4 mils by doing 1 mil general fund, right, plus 3 mils police millage, you can get to 4, 8 different ways. And that allows this council, who's gonna flip, 4 seats are gonna flip next year. And they'll have an extra, if we pass the full 4 mills, they'll have an extra $1.5 million to do whatever they want with it, as long as it's not against the charter. So that kind of, well, I should say that lack of restriction on politicians is something that most communities do not like, which is why they do the hybrid model. And the hybrid model can be, divided any way you want. And it makes for good checks and balances, because we want to give predictability to the police department. They will always be able to draw down that full amount. And usually what they do is they take the full mills and they put it towards salaries. And they put it towards equipment. And they put it towards things like Nina talked about, which is, integrity, training, right? The exemplary stuff. And they use the extra money to do what Jody talked about, which is help build the pension, right? Supplement these extra things. So it's always going to keep staffing at full, keep full staffing. If you do the 4 mills, and you could still have a council that decides to only draw down 1 mill, right? So that's not predictability either. But this hybrid approach, it's the how. So it's how do we get to 4? That is the question tonight. Or how do we get to 3.7, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you. You made a couple of assumptions about future councils of what they could do, and implying that they could become spendthrifts. Those same 4 or 5, whatever it is, new trustees could also be of the belief that having the best public safety in the village is not of the utmost important, and as you mentioned, having new luxury vehicles is, and they just say, sorry, police, you can live with the amount of money allocated to you, we're not giving you any more. No different than if we gave them a 4 full mills and they could say, even though you need whatever it is, 2.5, we're only giving you 1. You're making assumptions about people in the future, which is not what we need to be focusing on. My goal is to make it so that we have them in the best position possible in the future, and we can debate what is the best way to get us there. So,
But I think that's
thank
the
you for
point,
that.
though, is going to a full 4 and then introducing ambiguity could swing either way.
But
And we
under-
can't account, hold on, when we cannot account for that is the point. So if we're operating from a point of, based on your budget projections, if we pass something and draw down the entirety of that amount and give certainty, now we're ensuring that that obligation is met regardless. I think that's the point.
But you're
is
presuming that we're gonna
introdu-
draw
Hold on,
down
David,
more.
I'm still talking. Thank you.
Sorry.
Actually, he was talking when you interrupted him.
No, I was talking first, ma'am, thanks.
Well, I hadn't stopped, but go ahead, finish.
Thank you. But we were still discussing. But I
Go
think
ahead.
that's the point. And my biggest concern here is not whether we have a police department. I know it was something I introduced in a previous meeting because we're looking at budget projections and it's concerning how large that amount gets over time. So remember what I'd said was, is this something we can afford? And so my concern all along has been the certainty of can we do it? And the ambiguity of taking a full 4 without having certainty on whether or not that amount is drawn down introduces ambiguity on both sides of that. So that's your point. The extreme views on either side of that could be, we buy a fleet of luxury cars, or we've got a council that wants to completely undercut the police department.
Yeah, because to
So
that
that's my-
point, sure, there will be assumptions made tonight because we're forecasting projections into the future, which require certain assumptions to be made. But the truth is, if a council wanted to underfund or defund the police, if we passed for luxury vehicles or whatever you want to apply that to, right? What they could do is still make the decision not to draw down the police and fully draw down the 3.5, right? That has no amount going to the police. So it still doesn't solve the problem. If you have a council that doesn't support the police, they just will choose not to fund the police. They have that discretion when they set the budget allocation at the beginning of the year. So again, that's where we're still at the point where it's a policy decision of whether we believe that the police should be solely funded by a police millage, or whether it should be split between the general fund and the general fund and the police millage. My concern and why I support the split, which I do find compelling that the majority, if not all, municipalities in Oakland County follow the same model as we have historically followed this model, is that it allows us to have better, as much as the police deserve certainty, so do our residents. And if we say we're gonna open up, we're gonna pull the police out, that means the 3.5 is not going to is not going to the police anymore. And then residents are basically at the discretion of saying, is that full 3.5 gonna get drawn down? Or is this body gonna decide not to pull down the full amount? That's why I really am of the position that whatever I take to residents at the vote, I want to have a baseline assumption that we will be drawing the full amount every single year. Because the truth is again, voters have one opportunity to agree or disagree with drawing down that amount, and it's at the time of the poll. So whatever we say we want to put the money to, the future counts, I will never see that, right? I will not be sitting here once we actually receive those funds. And so I can't make a commitment for where I think the fund should go. I absolutely know where I think any surpluses should go. It should go towards capital outlays is one. It should go towards paying down the pension. It should go down making sure that we have enough for merit-based increase for the excellent work of our employees. Like, these are all things that we should do, but the question becomes, do we really need to open up the full 3.5 mils and the potential of the full 3.5 mils in order to do that? And so for me, like, I did ask questions around starting to look at baselines so that I can see how much of a surplus we have year over year to bring in the context. So me, it's really important that in this discussion, we look at what are our reserves over time. So like, if we have 4 mils, if we levy 4 mils at the full amount, there's a potential that within the first year, and again, these are all estimates, right? We can always assume that whatever surplus is being estimated, there's probably less of a surplus there just because things happen. But in the first year would be 1.8 million. That would become discretionary for council to spend. The next year, again, this is annually, 1.9 million discretionary funds for the council. If we go to 2.5 mils, the discretionary funds are 1.1 million in the first year, 1.168 in the second year. If we go to 175, the surplus is 730,000. And so you can see that that's where I'm really looking at it, is like, how do we get to the outcome of making, and these estimates are all based off of funding the police at what they requested and based off of the projections of the operating expenses for the village. So again, for me, the question is never about, do we fund the police? It's about, or do we increase taxes? We have to. I think that's the baseline that everybody needs to understand, is we absolutely do need to increase taxes. The question we need to be focusing on is by how much.
Comment?
No, because I'm going to finish when I was talking.
Okay.
So does your hybrid model have a formula to it? Or is the formula just whatever the mill is, whatever the current millage is at and capable of funding in any current year, and then all the rest just comes from the general fund, whether it's 10% or 40%, it's just whatever the difference is? Is there, because that still doesn't do great for long-term planning. It still isn't great, as chief or former chief said, is understanding if at the end of the year his budget's going to be the same as it was at the beginning. But is that the general thought, which is, if we're going on this premise that, one, our successors are all going to be people that take not the village's best interest in place and not only draw the actual amount that's necessary, or if there are other things that need to be done, have available resources to do other things, but is that the general assumption, that going into any budget season, we're gonna start out by saying, we have this many mills in the police millage, and this is the police budget, so the difference is going to the police department no matter what, and we start from there? Is that what you guys are generally saying?
No, I'm saying we'd operate as we currently do. Like, that's not what
We're not, because the millage
We are
part isn't
hybrid.
helping at all.
No,
It's
but we
doing
are
nothing.
hybrid right now, so.
It's the,
No,
I mean, it's
through
a
this
hybrid.
process, essentially what it is when we set the millage amount, we know that we can't go below that amount, right? So when we're doing the budgeting, and so if I'm saying anything incorrect, by all means, feel free to interject.
I don't know what you were saying, below what?
What I'm saying is that what he's saying is, are we sitting there and doing a line item to say, you only have 0.37 mils, chief? And my point is no, current state, we're already taking into account, we're taking that 3.7, applying it to the general fund and saying, police, how much, like, chief, how much do you need? And then we're allocating based off of that.
If we have an emergency and need it, we'll take it back, and we can. And that's the difference of a police millage or not.
Right,
We can't take it back, it's restricted funds.
yeah,
Whatever goes to them from the police millage has to be spent first, restricted dollars have to be spent first before unrestricted. So the first, right now, 0.37 mils gets spent first. Anything that's left over there, if we had any emergency right now that we needed funding for, that's where it's at, that's where it's coming from. That's, and a police millage restricts that from happening, that you can't go back and get it, you're on your own.
yeah.
And your emergency funds become the available mills that you collaborate on annually of what you're doing.
So is it fair to say, Jody, in that scenario, we're now encouraging, it's an inherent check and a balance. So now you're encouraging collaboration between our village administrator and our police chief to say, here is our entire operating fund if we're operating in a hybrid structure. If something happens, obviously we've done budgeting exercises, we have some idea generally where we'll need to be, but it encourages that level of collaboration because it's an inherent check and balance. Instead of having two standalone funds that are restricted on, like the police fund would be restricted, could not carry over in case the need were on this side of the house.
The way that you're saying it doesn't make sense to me, like, as if it.
So like right now, we have a fire millage. Fire has over $1 million in escrow. We have a cash flow problem. We can't touch any of that, even though that money came from our taxpayers. So that's what we're saying. That could technically happen again.
I mean, that's kind of contradictory at the same time, because if there's a cash flow problem, that means that the levies weren't set accurately,
Yeah, and-
which is done by the council.
And that's why we want to set a millage amount that allows an extra $700,000 in the general fund.
It's not
which is-
necessarily extra. The first year, it would have what would be a standard minimum of GASB for fund balances. The second year, we have,
Yeah.
pro-
But best
there's-
practice, from what we were told, best practice is 15 to 20% of your, should be in the slush fund.
yes,
Yeah.
of your annual revenues.
So sorry,
Correct.
just so that I understand, what were you saying with regard to the two pieces between, that, when you were talking about the first year and the second year? For this, we'll just use the 1.75 as the example. So the 737,000, what you're saying is that there's some things to consider within that.
Yes, I'm saying that as it starts, you're starting without fund balances. And
So you have to first take care of just like basic, so that needs to be thought of, and like, that 700,000 is like, there's a lot of things that it needs to take care of already in the first year. Is that accurate?
what I'm saying is, yes, that it takes care of nothing in the first year because those would establish fund balances that are not currently.
Okay.
So, and then the second year, then you could talk about what happens with it, depending on,
Priorities.
or other things that come up.
Yeah,
Of-
we could put it towards like the extras that this council.
I'm not sure though, like the first part of the point that I wanted to make, because it was said in a way earlier that was backwards of, to ensure that money is going to the police and that it is, that once it's allocated to them, that it's restricted to, it's theirs. And that's not accurate. General fund money can, wherever it's transferred, it doesn't transfer ownership. That money can go back at any time. It can be reallocated to something else.
No, I meant the police millage funds are restricted to the police.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes, just that portion. The general fund money is not.
yeah.
So when you, but it was kind of said earlier, as the former chief had said something about that part of it, that, you know, was something that he liked about it, is that it can't be touched by anybody else, and it can't be funded, and it's kind of, you know, you say that, like, if they may just give them less of it, you know, there's not a lot, the only benefit to the board is their own personal property tax savings. That would be a motive on that. And with the fire, to say that there's a surplus there, like, that's how that typically works, is that they can't do anything with it, so they just give it to them and let them do what they want with it. Like, it's not a, well, we're just gonna defund you. If nobody has defunded the fire with, you know, they've built up an account, but in regards to that, they need an account right now, and, you know, that's not part of the discussion today. I mean, that will be part of the budget discussions, but I don't see them reducing that amount. It was more of saying of what's restricted and what's not, and what can go to the police, what has to go to the
Yeah.
police. And once it's there, whether or not it can be taken back from them.
right.
Because when you're in a point where you don't have emergency funding, emergencies are coming out of the operating budgets. And it is the largest operating budget, and it is where it's gonna get pulled from first, because there's a lot of it. Everything is minimal right now. And so I just wanted that part to be clear of what is restricted and what's unrestricted. General operating money belongs to the general fund, and the council has authority over that money. Anything that is specified in a millage belongs specifically there, and it is restricted money and cannot be taken, moved, or spent anywhere else. That was just what I wanted to clarify.
So, yeah, Pam, well, you have a question for Jody, because I know you want to have the
I'd
floor.
actually like Jody to stay up there, because I think you're going to be able to shed some light on this particular issue.
Okay.
My comment is building on a comment you made, David, about surplus. And there seems to be an underlying assumption that somehow if there's a surplus, that it will be misused or used questionably. Two issues that were brought up was, you know, the integrity of the council, when in fact it's really about the checks and balances in the system. So I'm going to ask you in a minute to comment on the checks and balances that are there. But before we do that, relative to the so-called surplus, I think your comment was it could go to pension. The fact of the matter is, if voters approve a 4 mil police millage, that does free up some constraints that we currently have in the general fund to do things like meet our legal obligations regarding the pension account. Right now, we are funded at about 58%, which is, I believe, the number that you presented to us a couple of weeks ago. I do not consider 58% acceptable, and I do not think it's good practice for us as stewards of the village money to look at pension contributions and achieving our legal obligation as surplus. We should be baking that into our annual operating budget. And with with a little bit more available to us each year, we can do that. We can't do it right now. The way we got there, we got it up to 60%, I think, funded a couple of years ago, was due to a grant. It wasn't that we dug in our pockets. We were given money from the state to shore that up. We don't have a plan for recovery right now. So something that's on my mind is that we all are able to talk to each other about what our real expenses are right now, what is actually surplus. I have a feeling it's considered vanity projects. I don't really see it that way. I see it as pension is one of them, but there are other ones, other long-term expenses. Do you have anything that you wanted to say to amplify that point?
You know, my perspective is from a finance perspective, and I kind of try to do that because I'm not in the same position.
Okay.
And in my perspective, when you, like, to talk about $700,000, to me, that's just already gone from what I see is lacking already. And then I see other things that are needed and the costs of some of those things. And I hear about different projects, and there's still things that I'm learning about.
Yeah.
And that we have, deficit in with the storm or the wastewater thing. And, somebody's coming in from WRC next week to meet with me to go through all of that stuff and get it so that I have an understanding of not just how much is it this year, but what is this and what are we looking at financially for that? I don't even have all of the answers none of that is accounted in that number.
It occurs to me that maybe, and this isn't yours, this is ours as policy people here, but it occurs to me that we aren't being completely open with each other about what the real costs of running this village are. There has been so many years of deferred expenses, and I'd see a lack of information, honestly, and I can't get mad at anybody about that, but I think we need to fix that problem. Before we go on, would you comment, there was another comment made about checks and balances. While that comment was being made, I made a list of about 8 of them that exist currently in the system. Would you talk about the checks and balances that are put boundaries around our decision-making, that exist as parameters within which we make our decisions right now?
That would be more of a question for an attorney. I have a roundabout idea of the answer to that, but
I'll give you mine.
I don't know if mine's correct.
I'll give you mine, and maybe other trustees have some of those as well. One is, my experience is our residents pay attention to what we spend money on. That's a check.
I believe that.
Another one is that this council reviews checks written every month, and we approve them. We also have policies in place for how money is to be spent in this village, and we hold the village administrator accountable. And she's questioned. If we have any questions, she is questioned openly in a meeting. Another one is we have restricted and unrestricted funds, and we count on you and the administrator to help us make sure that we're playing within the rules. Another check is that we do a budget every year. We spend months doing it. We use the finance committee to go through line items.
We've never done that in the last 2 years.
Excuse me, I'd just like to finish, if you don't mind. But we have a budget, and last year we had a couple of budget workshops with our previous administrator, and she did go through line items, and she informed us of some changes she'd made, et cetera. I thought it was well done. We have a planning process. I will be the first to say it's not adequate, but for the last 4 years, we have had our village president has listed out priorities. Our former president, David hasn't had a chance to do that yet, but our former president listed them out by expensive and easy. That was fine. I think it could be improved, but there is another stake in the ground on what we spend what we think we might want to spend our money on to guide our budgeting process. Other cities like Birmingham do a formal strategic planning process. I wish we did that, but we don't. We have a council manager form of government here, which means that it's not this group's job to be a management council. It's Rachel's job, and we hold her accountable to do that. That is a check and a balance on the system. And finally, we have an annual millage. And we have state laws about how we handle deficits and budgets here. That's, to me, is another check. Can you think of any more?
I think that to say that, you know, a comment on like budget workshops and stuff for the last couple of years, after what I had pointed out on the slides last week on the budget for last year and budget workshops and process for this year, it's, you know, it's not in a way of disrespect, but it, to me, is, I kind of chuckled about budget workshops because what do we have to talk about? Here's our operating, cut everything, like, as go through everything and try to find out, you know, where can we reduce stuff? And at the end, we're at zero. So what is there to, like, we can't talk about extra projects, extra things we need, any of that kind of stuff that what should be a budget workshop about, okay, we have $500,000, we need, this is 200,000, this is 100,000, this is, you know, these projects, we could invest it, we could put it here, we can, you know, put it into our MERS towards our pension. Those are the conversations that I'm used to at budget workshops. There's, and not only are we not there now, but the most expensive thing in America is to be broke. And we're not, there's nothing except for what comes in from somewhere else is what is going out. And if we're trying to net zero that without having any type of investments or cash to fall back on, it's a scary place to live. And I think that part of my thing throughout this was, you know, I was asked for different things. I kind of evaded a little bit of thing about giving like a minimum. What's the minimum we would need? Because I don't know what the minimum is. It's a gamble of finding out where the minimum is. It depends. How much risk do you want to take to know where the minimum is? And so it's not I'm the least educated after, you know, I have 3 weeks of seniority now. And so to say like, this should be a comfortable minimum, and then if it's wrong, it's, you know, well, Jody said it was okay, you know, to be here, and it's almost a part of a responsibility thing, because I don't know if I was confident in the numbers and knew the things and knew the future and had all of that stuff and had confidence in even that stuff, there's still so many moving parts of it. I've updated things. I received from the county our millage reduction fraction for this year. It is less than last year, the number that we've been talking about. This year is lower, which means that our millage rate drops more than what it was. Our historical trends that we put in those, we used the number that we had yesterday, so those decrease now. And like, those numbers are constantly changing until you're set into a budget. So even when you have all of that comfort I'm not gonna find out about something else tomorrow that is like, oh, that needs to be on the radar too, it's still uncomfortable.
Thank you. My point was that there are many checks and balances in the system. We don't always execute all of them very well. But this isn't a random rogue process.
Right.
Thank you.
Correct.
So I want to clarify something, since you're following up on my comments, which was, I never once said that we were going to do frivolous spending, right? I never accused the council of needlessly spending either. My point is that whatever we take to the residents, that will be their opportunity to speak or forever hold their peace. Because the second we pass that millage, this council can choose to fund projects that people may or may not agree with. And that was the point. It was not to say that anybody's gonna act nefariously, right? It was simply to point out that, again, we have to put ourselves into the perspective of constituents. The other thing too is, again, I don't think anybody's to the point of chuckling about the budget workshop. I completely agree. Like, our greatest financial control, which is miserable, is the fact that we haven't had money. Like, that's the truth of it. Because just last meeting, we cut a $4,000 check that we didn't know about. Our check runs is to approve funds we've already paid, right? Like, these are a lot of the issues that we will clean up because we have an amazing staff now, right, to start to look at these things. And so, you know, when I was, so again, raising my hand, I was trying to educate myself as much as possible on this so that I could come in here and make an informed decision, is that when I was requesting a baseline, it wasn't through a perspective of, I want to fund us at the minimum. It was trying to identify, like, okay, as we start to assign numbers to it, like, what is our surplus? Because again, it's like, from a strategic standpoint, whether we apply a 5-year or a 10-year, we can start to pay off and bring these balances up. And because again, we may just be going around in circles, but it is one of those where it's like, we're going to have to land on a number. If we do 4, then by the end of a 10-year, we're looking at, again, $18 million that is not accounted for in the projections, understanding that a lot of that needs to go to fund things, right? I don't know, well, I don't know that 18 million does, but my point is that it's a year over year over year compilation of that 4 mils, or I guess it'd be the 3.5, right? And so that's where I go at. I don't want to lose track of, and I hear you, that I think the most material consideration in the policy of solely funding the police, and I think this is really the main thing is that if there is an emergency for the village, they can take the police funds. If there's an emergency for the police, they can take, like, sorry, let me rephrase that. So if there's a police millage, yeah, it's the opposite. So if there's a police millage, we can't then pull the funds out of the police to fund our emergency.
Correct.
The residents will have the police there.
Correct.
However, if the police, with or without the millage, get an emergency, they can still pull in the general fund to keep the police there for the residents.
They can.
Okay.
If there was.
So what if the emergency comes in and the emergency says we need more money than was left for the police, and you take the police's money away at that point?
No, that's
Which is
what I was saying.
Dan is saying was his biggest fear is you get to the end of the year and you find out that you need more money for something else and you didn't have it available in a police millage and you can only go to the general fund, and now I have to make a decision. Do I use it to continue funding the police for the rest of the year or satisfy the emergency?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Right. That's not a great decision. It's not a great decision
Well,
to
if
have
we
to make.
have, I mean, maybe. I get the concern about it, but to the tune of a potential $18 million.
Where's 18 million coming from? I'm just curious what that.
Yeah,
that
if you
number
go
is.
to the last sheet that has the projections of the 4 mills, at the bottom.
Assuming that the full 3.5 and full 4 would be levied every year.
Correct.
Well, we have
Every
a-
year, right.
Yeah.
That was that
Yeah.
what the
That's
intention
what-
was?
Right. But I think that
It's not spent.
the discussions were that it would be, which it is already decided annually, how much of every millage is levied. And
Every year
it's,
we do another check.
We don't need.
and
to-
every year has been the maximum because the maximum has barely been enough. It has to be the
But
maximum.
we've never
I would-
set the millage, because we have like $600,000 in the rubbish fund, and we've never like gone down. So I'm just letting you know, just, I don't know if you watched the last budget meeting, but we never were like, now we're gonna set the millages. It was just like, now we approve.
Do you know why that? It's because your charter actually says that your budgeted amount in your first budget process, your revenues have to be greater than the appropriation. The appropriations can't be more. So you can't spend a full fund balance in a year. You still have to pull from that millage to levy enough to be able to operate and create a budget for that. Then a week later, well, up to a week later, at least a week later, however it says, the charter's kind of odd with it, then you can amend that resolution to add other things. But your operating budget has to be able to be funded by revenues coming into it, not by the fund balance that's there. So it can't be spent. So it is reduced every year. It's not levied at the full amount, but you have to pull enough to be able to run the operations of it.
So that's why we don't have like two separate processes.
Well,
That's what I'm
I
saying,
think
like,
that it
you've never
hasn't, I
had
think
that.
it hasn't been understood of how the process works. And I was wrong last week, kind of, that saying that it's okay to budget, it's not illegal to budget appropriations greater than the revenue. That's how you spend the fund balance. And according to the laws, that's accurate. But according to the Franklin Charter, that's can be accurate, but it's a two-step process.
Yeah.
The initial budget has to be presented balanced, as the minimum operating part of it has to be balanced. Any of the other stuff, any other projects have to be an amended resolution to that to add to it, and then you can move money around or whatever from that point.
Yeah. Thank you for looking into the charter.
I'm going through, like I said, I can only learn 8 hours in a day.
Jeff, do you have anything?
I guess the way, Jody, you're kind of describing this is it's like a risk management exercise.
Yes.
Sorry. Everyone up here, I think, agrees that we should fund the police, and we want to have a staff, and we want the staff to feel supported, and we want the staff to feel like they're not just banging their heads, wow, I have no money, so why am I sitting here? Because there's nothing else to do other than just say like, okay, that's what we got, and try and claw a little bit here and there, right? The risk management comes from if you have fully, you put this number over here for however many years, then all the exercise has to be on, okay, how much do we need in the general fund to run our business? And do we want to run that way, or do we want to have like, oh, here's a little bit more risk. We definitely, the people up here think that the police should be funded, and it's just like a little bit of accounting, which way should it go? And then from there, you kind of have like, I guess the way I've been thinking about it is, if we have two sets of money, it's going to be very laser focused on priorities. We'll have the budget workshop, and there will be a forcing function to say like, hey, okay, there's $2 million. The police, we didn't give them the full amount. We need to give them that amount, and then we also need to think, and I understand it creates uncertainty, but I think to some level, I think we can understand like $1 million to $1.5 million, that's the entire general fund, historically, right? So like, I guess, are there acts of God that I'm not considering that really put it at risk at those levels? I don't know.
It's any act at this point. When you, I mean, you personally, how would you feel right now with could you feel comfortable canceling your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance, and all of that if you had $0 in the bank right now?
Yeah. Okay.
How comfortable would you feel
But
with how much, and then how much money do you need to make next year? Are you gonna budget it out at exactly what all of your bills are and be like, yep, that's enough? It's that kind of, it's the same thing in a larger scale. We don't have something to just dip back into.
Yep.
I guess.
You almost looked like you were gonna talk.
No, because I definitely hear what you're saying. I think the thing that I struggle with is we're not landing at the 4 for any other reason than that's the projection of a 10-year from the police, right? So as we start to talk about the balanced budget, it's really kind of this weird dovetail between, yes, we need funds, but our mechanism by doing it is by completely pulling out the police millage. And it's like, that's where I guess I struggle is I think there's a number there that doesn't have to be a full 4 where we're looking at 15 million of just now that we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're going to do with it.
Well, it's really important though that you recognize that this community is behind right now.
Yeah.
Most communities, like you've named Bloomfield and Birmingham, I'm sure they have millions of dollars invested, and they are taking advantage of their investment income every month. We have zero. We have $0
They don't have
invested.
commercial districts. Bloomfield Township has a $5 billion taxable value.
Well,
We have
right, but
400
you're not
million.
focusing on the
So
other
they're
number,
10
which
times
is zero.
bigger than us.
Like, we're cherry picking communities to be like, look at how luxurious they
Yeah,
are.
it's,
But the answer is zero. But so, that's, anyways.
so let me ask you a question, let me listen, because at the end of the day, what I'm hearing from those who are not supporting having available the full amount is some level of distrust in whether it's your ability or your successor's ability to not just do what's right and become spendthrifts. In any of these scenarios, we will now have enough money to pay for everything. Under the 4 mil scenario, you keep talking as if in the first year, we're gonna draw the full 4 mils. We don't need, well, first of all, it never gets to 4 mils. By the time it gets to the 7th or 8th or 9th year when we need it, it's already down to 3.8 mils. But there's this presumption that because it's available, it's then gonna be assessed and it's then gonna be spent. All that it means is it's available, and by having 4 mils all alone for police and still 3.5 for the general fund, we now have more money available. And our residents have to trust us that we're gonna do the right thing. Everything I hear everyone saying has this underlying presumption that we're not going to do that. And for the last 30 years, we have operated on budgets and drawn taxable amounts that barely get us by. That is why we do not have surpluses. That's why we do not have investments, because our predecessors have always made it to just be enough. I, as president in my term, want to try and set us up for a future wherein we now have a future and we have available money. And our residents will trust us to do the right thing. And if we become spendthrifts and we buy luxury cars, then vote those people out, sell the cars, and do the right thing. So this whole underlying presumption that it's going to be wasted is what I'm struggling with. All that we're asking for is to make sure we have enough available to be able to do whatever it is we want moving forward, which is what people who live in Franklin, Michigan should be able to expect. And if we're going to live in a community where we have to worry about whether we're going to tax our residents an extra $10 more in that year, then I'm not even sure what we're doing up here. Let's do exactly what you said. Let's tell us what the budget is. Let's draw enough money to do that. And we'll just keep kicking the can down the road every year. We'll just keep kicking it.
But that's what we've done, David.
I know,
We're
that's what I'm trying to avoid.
No, I'm saying, my point is, like, we're here, and my distrust is, we're having this conversation now. Everything has gotten us to this point of existential crisis.
Show me one
So
thing where we're
pardon
wasting
my-
money. I'm
Pardon
still
my
struggling with that.
distrust for, we're here. We are having to make an existential decision.
Because we've never
because
drawn
it's-
enough money
well,
over the years before
Because
us.
it's been mismanaged.
No, we have never had
We
enough.
haven't made
You're
prudent
making a presumption that
decisions.
it's been mismanaged.
We're
I'm making a
here.
presumption that we've never had enough.
David, we're
Because
here.
our predecessors chose to not draw more when they could have to create a balance.
I think that one thing to note is that we're also discussing it as a 3.5 charter levy, which as just a couple, how many years ago was it? That it was 2.5 before the Headley override, maybe 2.59 or something, but that was at 2.5. It wasn't 3.5. And in another 15 years, it will probably be back towards 2.5. Like, that's what happens. It's not gonna just stay there, forever, and a millage.
Will with a police mill.
And a millage and that's kind of the point of renewals and votes, of if it's being mismanaged, it would be a one and done. I mean, that's the accountability, is from, I'm sure that the taxpayers will be voting.
I agree. To President Goldberg's point, if me, you, and Abby all vote not to draw down the full amount, because we're the only ones that are sure to sit here in November, the 4 new council members that are on here could outvote us. and they could
Obviously.
draw down the 4 new.
Just like I sit here today and the 4 of you are gonna about us, so what's the difference?
Because you said,
It's the same.
you just said, have trust in
You're
us.
just gonna be on the other side of the equation,
You
you're not
just
gonna
said,
like it.
have trust in us. But it's not gonna be us. This money's not coming in until
Us is
August
the-
of
us is councils in
2027.
general, correct. That's what you get elected to do. The people choose you to go and sit in their stead and make the decisions for them that they feel you would do in their best interest.
Exactly, so we're all policymakers, so
So
we're
I'm
making
hoping that the
decisions.
next 4 people will also get
You're
elected
hoping,
on that.
it's just hope. And what we're focused on is risk management and where can we balance that risk and
But what
minimize
happens
that
if they're
hope.
all good people and we've now hamstringed them again in 4 or 5 years?
We're putting enough money in both funding sources, not to fund the police
Barely.
projected amount at the
Barely.
full amount.
We haven't
Nope.
set a
Without
limit.
doing any
Wait,
significant.
David, no, real quick though, David, how do you mean barely? We haven't set a number. Nobody's thrown out a number.
I understand that.
Well, no, because you're using very extreme terms. Like previously, you were saying you were making an assumption that we're just gonna scrape by as we always have. Every one of us is at the table saying we know we need to increase taxes. That is without question. We don't need to lose sight of that. Have previous administrations mismanaged the funds? The answer is absolutely yes, because they never went to the taxpayers to increase the taxes, which is the conversation that we're having today. So like, did they go out and nefariously spend? No. Did they do the prudent thing of raising taxes? No. And that is financial mismanagement. So that is again my point is like, I understand that we have several needs for funding, and that's where my question keeps coming. The only reason we arrived at 4 is not off of a calculation of what do we actually need for a healthy balance. It was pull the police out to give them their own fund. I completely understand what you're saying regarding the fact that you're saying there is clearly inherent mistrust to say that whoever comes in is going to draw down and spend frivolously. I personally don't think that anybody's going to spend frivolously, but when I look at projections, I want to make the assumption that the full amount is being drawn down because again, from a policy standpoint, the one opportunity to speak is when they go to the polls for the next 10 years.
Dan?
Yeah, so it was late at the end of the last meeting, and I felt a bit awkward and rushed, honestly, when I made the motion when I did, and sorry if others weren't ready for the motion last time, and I'm glad that we've taken a pause and taken more time to think about this and continued the discussion, and I know I didn't get to say everything that was on my mind last time either, and first of all, raising taxes is definitely not something I take lightly. I absolutely respect the hesitation of other council members here, and I think this is a good, healthy discussion that we're having. But of course, we're not raising taxes just to raise taxes. We're raising taxes because at current funding levels, we cannot continue to afford our police department. It is not sustainable. And there is nothing more important than our safety. One of my favorite things about living in Franklin is our community events, and we can't enjoy our events if we don't feel safe. When I bought my home here in Franklin, I looked up crime statistics and compared Franklin to other neighboring communities. Maybe some other people did that too, and on the particular map I was looking at, green represented the safest areas, and we were this nice healthy chunk of green, and not all the surrounding communities are. And that was something that was really important to me, and I think the loss of our police department would be a terrible thing for Franklin. I think it would be a very unpopular thing. I'm concerned that would make us a target for crime if we were to have to glob on to a neighbor to sustain a police force here, and relatedly, not as important as our safety, but something that I think is also important to a lot of residents are our property values. And our property values are also boosted by our excellent police department here. And so I've been listening to the conversation. I understand the concern that some have expressed here. Ultimately, though, I think we need to have some amount of trust in ourselves and in future council members. They're going to be elected by the people, and they're accountable to the people. And council members have to be trusted to make all kinds of important decisions on behalf of the village and to set them up so that the police department is not on a sustainable path, because we might disagree with how unknown future council members, who of course are going to be chosen by the people in the first place, let's not forget that. But because we don't know what future council members may or may not do with village funds, that just doesn't make sense to me that we set the police department up on a path that isn't sustainable. And this police millage, this is a big ask of our neighbors. And if we don't levy enough now, I'm very concerned about going back in the future and asking a second time when we figure out what we actually need. And I think we know already what we're going to actually need. It's not even a matter of figuring it out. Like, we already know that if we're asking for less than 4, we're not asking for enough for this to have a sustainable future for the police department. And I'm very concerned about asking once this year and then in 3 or 5 years having to come back and ask again. I think it's human nature that some people will say, you know, they might vote yes the first time, but you come back in a few years and you're asking again, and people are going to be like, wait a minute, I just wrote you a check for this. Why are you asking me again? And I'm afraid that we could set up a future council for a situation where they're not going to have enough funds to sustain our police department in its current form unless we get it right the first time. So I think the more prudent course is to protect our police department and make sure we have enough with the millage now to sustain it into the future, to defer to the excellent work of our staff. And I'm also concerned about this unfunded pension liability. That's something of a ticking time bomb, and I think we need to be working on that every year and not just putting that off. And ultimately, in closing, this isn't our decision. It's up to the residents, and they have the right to vote it down. If we put up 4 mills and they vote it down, that's absolutely our neighbor's decision. I would respect their decision, but I think we should give the villagers the option to fully fund their police department with this millage in August, if that is what they choose to do. And if they don't, then we can take their feedback to heart and we can come back to them in November with a lesser amount, but I think we should give them that choice in the first place. And so for all these reasons, I think we should approve putting the language on the ballot to fully fund the police department at the 4 mills.
Thank you. All right, so at this point, there's been a motion. Dan, if you're willing to again, make your motion to have the millage be set, and we'll deal with millage language secondarily. But if the motion is still on the table to set the millage for the police at a max of up to 4 years over a 10-year period. Yeah, up to 4 mills over a 10-year period. That's still your motion?
Yes.
All right, I'll still second that. So let's just do a roll call vote on that right now. If that fails, then we know we're working in one of the hybrid arenas, and I will leave it to the floor for you guys to tell us what you believe is the appropriate hybrid. So Chief, if you could do a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Trustee King?
No.
Trustee Salaka?
No.
Trustee Hansen?
Yes.
Trustee Ferris?
Yes.
Trustee Gates?
No.
Trustee Sally?
No.
President Goldberg?
Yes. Okay, so guys, tell us what it's gonna be, because I'm done talking. Tell us what the amount's gonna be. You four know what it's gonna be. Tell us what it's gonna be. Let's make the motion, and let's move on.
So I'm going back over these priorities that we just set like 60 days ago.
Hang on, before you go, I just want to clarify something, that what you just said inferred that 4 members of council came in with an opinion, or came in and essentially decided on what number we want.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm
You did.
saying,
You said,
tell us what
the
number
that
you want.
guys want.
Whoever's gonna make the motion, tell us what it is. If someone supports it, and then we'll have a vote on it. But do we need to keep talking about, like, what's best? Are we gonna use 2.5? Are we gonna use 1.75? What is the one that you feel creates the least amount of spendthrift ability so that we can still run our police department, run our village, and not be in a deficit.
Isn't that our job, though?
Yeah, tell me what it
No, I
is.
mean, isn't it our job to discuss and
Yeah, discuss it and tell us
disagree
what it is.
dissent
We need to
and
start with a motion.
decide
Yeah, we gotta
what's
start
best?
somewhere. So we
We
gotta start
can
somewhere.
discuss without a motion.
You're right, we can keep discussing and discussing.
So,
What is it that needs discussion?
I'm just saying that we spent, like, I think now 10 months and at least 3 hours of multiple council meetings discussing blight ordinances. And we haven't even seen proposed language. And the first time police millage came on the agenda was at the March council meeting. First time for any council in the last 5 years. It's never been discussed publicly. So like, forgive us if we just want to have a discussion on something that could potentially raise residents' taxes 45%.
Okay, continue the discussion. What is the
45%, that's a big
additional
deal.
part of the discussion
So I'm
that's
going
needed?
back to the priorities we set,
Okay.
because that's a framework that we just did 60 days ago. Not one of us put funding police pension on here. So if that's a new priority, we didn't think about it 60 days ago. So I'm just saying, that's an example of like, things we could spend money on that we didn't previously say. So that just supports, like, we don't know what future councils are gonna wanna spend money on. I personally think it's important to at least be 70% funded in the pension. That was what we were told was the best practice. But all of us kind of forgot about that. And we had like 2 months to do this, including you.
If you think about the methodology that we used, that document is a compilation that was done by combining individual input that was done by Evan. I do remember writing
Can you
down.
find it? Because I have yours right here.
Well, I thought I did.
No, you didn't.
I did some other long range. I did
Relevance.
wastewater.
What's the
Doesn't matter.
relevance?
The relevance is that people's priorities can
Correct,
change.
priorities change,
Just like
needs
this
change,
council's
monies
priorities can
change.
change.
As a
Yeah. So
council,
we
I
can't-
personally like to have the most amount available so that we can serve our residents. And if our residents are supportive of making that available to us, great.
And
As
I
Dan said,
agree
if we
with
take
that.
4 to them and they say, that's crazy, that's way too much money to have, then we know that's not gonna work. But you're making presumptions
So
for them.
this just goes
ahead of
back
time.
to what Trustee Sally said last about how, like, when someone has a different opinion, they become a them, and they become a us, and they become a villain. Like, it's just not appropriate to gaslight policymakers like that. We are having hard conversations because they've never happened. So just because someone disagrees with you or brings up priorities we set 60 days ago and identifies that they've changed already and we're the same people we were here and our financial situation is the same thing it was 60 days ago, doesn't mean you're my enemy or I'm not your friend. Like, it's ridiculous. We all said we want to fully fund the police department. And there's 3 ways to get there. And we would be the only village to have a single source funding of a millage. So,
Beverly Hills doesn't?
what?
Beverly Hills doesn't have a public
They
safety
have
millage that
police and-
covers police and fire, it's still the same thing, dedicated funds for specific purpose, but whatever.
So, and we were told that
Continue
that
your
model
dialogue.
is
Continue
being-
your discussion.
We were told that that model is actually unpopular.
Continue your discussion.
Last meeting.
Tell me when you're ready to make a vote.
Okay, so, and you closed our discussion on this topic in the March meeting. And your council had to override you because it's important to talk about this. But I'm done, because you don't want to talk about it.
I didn't know this was a meeting to talk about budget priorities. If that's what we're doing, if we're revisiting budget priorities, fine.
No, you
We're trying to
closed
set a
us talking
millage
about
for
the
police
millage.
millage.
And
No, I
we're here
didn't.
because we know we're gonna raise
I closed the vote
taxes.
on whether we're gonna use the maximum amount. Now I said, tell us what you
Why
feel.
is that the only option, David?
It's not the only option. I'm
You-
asking you
you're-
now to
I-
tell us what the hybrid is
We
that
all
works.
showed up today to set a millage. We didn't have to. We could have come back in May and we could have voted on a millage that would have gone on the November ballot.
Go
So
ahead.
we're here for you.
For me.
Because you want this to be on the August ballot. And so we are supporting you in that initiative. And if you didn't want
Our
to,
administration doesn't want it on the August ballot either, to see if we could get it through, and if it doesn't work, to take a shot in November? You
But-
wanna wait until November to find out
no,
whether
but
it's
I
gonna
just
work and
want
then have to wait
everyone to
again?
be aware
Okay.
that there's only a 20 to 30% voter turnout in August. Okay?
The right
So-
people might come.
That's unproductive.
I'm
David.
just
What is
saying,
that?
Can we get back on track?
we're here for you.
Why are you looking at me
Okay.
while you're saying that, Pam? Me get back on
Okay, you
track?
guys are here for
was
me.
scanning.
I
I'm
appreciate
sorry.
you being
I
here
just
for me.
talked about this in
I'm
January.
calling the question.
I could have called the vote last meeting, but I didn't. specifically said we'll come back so that you could think more and have more research and vet it out more and have all the dialogue we're having today. We went back to the beginning. I said, can we try the 4 mills? It failed. Now all I'm saying is tell us where you want to go next. If we have to come out of here with something, what is the suggestion? Is there not another suggestion?
My suggestion is gonna be making a motion at 2.5. I think that is gonna be what, we have 6 available. We've never had 6 available. I think that's plenty to run the village. I think that's gonna give us plenty of runway to plan. You don't think so?
I said earlier in my email to you guys, when you asked me, like, the minimum to survive the next 10 years. The minimum combined millage to survive the next 10 years was 6 minimum.
5 years.
Then you're gonna have to make it even higher the next time, or the next board will. Will you trust them that they'll be stewards and go and ask the tough questions for a millage? I mean, it's kind of like reversal the same way, but so if you, this curve kind of goes like this on the sheet. So if you get to 5, now you stopped at 5 right before it starts before it decreases. So that means if you stop at 5, then in 5 years, you'll need 7.
So,
I'll second trustee King's motion.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, further discussion?
yeah, Jody, if you could stay up, because to be honest,
Shouldn't, I'm not supposed to, I think, when there's a motion on the floor, but.
oh, sorry, I thought we were in discussion.
I haven't made,
No, we're in discussion, so if someone has
she
questions, you can
seconded
stay
it.
up there, yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, no, and again, the opinion that I care most about is yours and Rachel's, right? Like, I am here today, not of anybody else's opinion. I have what I'm trying to work through and I'm trying to educate myself. And so when we talk about like projections of planning, to me, I feel more comfortable with a 5-year because I think that there's been the terminology kick the can down the road. The answer is that the most problematic thing about this entire thing is our charter having a 3.5 limit. And so that's how you stop kicking the can down the road. So I think inevitably, eventually a council will have to vote on this. What I think you've been put into a bit of an impossible situation is the short runway that you've had. You said it, there's a ton of unknowns that you're just not aware of. And so for me, as I look at like locking in on a 10-year with those unknowns compared to a 5-year where we can start to really know what we're dealing with, and have 5 years to start to build that narrative out to residents of like, here's truly how we're spending the funds and here's what's left over. You know, like this is really what we have to use out for priorities. I'll just broadly say for priorities. I think is helpful. So is there any major objection with 5 compared to 10 from, not objection, because I would imagine you'd be like, it's ultimately you all as policy, but what are your concerns with 5 years over 10?
I don't have a concern. It's not a matter of duration of 5 or 10, but I'm saying that if a minimum to survive 10 is 6,
Yeah.
then that makes it the minimum at the beginning if it's the minimum overall.
Meaning that total number has to be 6? Or the police
The
millage
total
has to be
number
6?
The total number. So a
The
4 mil.
total combined.
Yeah, a 4 mil, 10-year millage is the same as a 2.5 mil. I mean, but it gets the 6 mils. Like it fully funds your projected police budget
Not alone.
that Chief did. Yeah, but we're working on the hybrid model because we just,
Right.
the single source model failed.
Fully funds, yeah, operational, when going through
And
budgets of needs,
And leaves how much surplus?
requirements.
And leaves-
That was not a surplus. And when the first week before our meeting last week, Rick David came in to meet with me once I came up with some information to talk about and to see what I came up with. And he told me that what he came up with as a minimum was combined with, that would be half needed, is 6 mills, which was the same exact number that I came up with.
Yeah.
And we're still talking minimum. So,
Yeah. Right.
can we do that? Will we survive on that? Yes. Is it going, can we pay towards other obligations? Maybe not, maybe. Those things, there's your risk. Depends on what really happens.
Yeah, and then
It's guessing and hypothetical right now. So if things happen like, oh, we got this, oh, look, we found, there's a grant here, we got this, like, we can try to do all of those things. But if it,
No, sorry, I was saying that's keeping everything equal.
let's see.
Sorry.
every time.
Yeah. That's without cutting anything, like without changing,
It's an unknown for her. She hasn't had enough time to be
Yeah,
able
yeah,
to
I mean-
fairly answer that.
yeah.
Without cutting, what could be cut? Do you,
Like without getting rid of Plant Moran, without.
we already have.
Okay, well, in the projected budget that you gave us last week, it still had 100,000 in there for Plant Moran. So that's what, I just used that because I figured let's have 100,000.
Well, we told you when we gave you that budget that we were doing it because it is state law
Yeah.
that we do that, and that is not in any way any kind of a final budget.
In the numbers that I provided you with today, does not include anything to Plant Moran, or the only outside service that it includes is our ADP payroll processing fees, which are, this year so far, we've spent $8,000 on. I would love to do that for not an additional cost, however, we would need the software to do it.
Yeah.
And we're pretty far away from being able to have the software. We have BSNA, we have the .NET software, it's obsolete. You can't add modules anymore to it. Everyone is being, upgrading to the cloud. Their new reps that are coming in are their new IT, they're only being trained in cloud services. And within the next, they've been saying for a couple years that within the next few years, it's going to be stopped completely where it can't be used anymore. And I actually have an appointment tomorrow with the rep from BSNA to find out how much the cloud costs for here to convert to the cloud.
And this is.
It is based on size and funding, the amount of, there's a lot of factors in basing the cloud price, but I do know that the last place that I got a quote for the cloud was over $100,000 to implement. And, so we can't even save money because we don't have the money to be where we need to be.
No, and that's super helpful, but I think it's so good for our residents to hear that, because we need
Good
to
for
raise
us to hear it,
taxes,
so thank
not
you.
to fund the police, to fund everything else that we are lacking in our operating expenses. And so that's all that we want to be transparent about. The proposal is moving all this money to the police so we can have more money for operating expenses. And unless we come clean on that, it is not a fair vote. So that's why we're saying the hybrid is more transparent, because it shows like, hey, we need more money in both funds.
But I'm going to withdraw my motion for a moment because I want to ask one more question, if that's okay, of Jody. So the sixth assumption is basically like, you do not believe that there is any wiggle room to have a budget workshop and talk about priorities. Is that accurate?
It's about necessities and what's more important than something else. That is, I do feel like that's where we're at.
Okay.
I think that, if you want full transparency, I think that there's a risk of receivership happening right now. I think that fund balances are projected to be nothing at the end of the year, with some fund balances projected to be negatives. And I think that coming out of that, looking at what's the least amount again, I'm the finance
Totally
person,
agree.
not the policy setter, but that to me, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, to feel like that, it's like, wow, we won't ever catch up if that's where we are. It's to be able to even be in a position to have conversations about wants. You know, for when residents come in and ask about certain things, and it's like, well, that's not gonna happen. You know, you know, and everybody applauded and praised the chief, and I completely second that, but to know that he's like also the handyman and spider killer and the thing, because we don't have all of these other things either. I guarantee you, if you go in my office right now, there's no trespassers. They're eliminated on a daily basis. Pest control would probably be more prudent. I'm sure there's better things he could be doing, but thankfully he is available and kind and at no extra cost to come and do those kinds of things. Like, things are really being, like, people are working multiple things, and they're like, things are very stretched. And you know, I say that as an outsider inside, because I'm just because I don't have the historical past here. I don't have anything to do with anything that's happened. Like, I'm an outsider in that perspective, and that's how I see it.
So let me ask this question before I make a motion. So based off of the police's projections, and again, we landed on 4 over 10 years. If we go 5 and did 3.3, that would still pull them completely out based off of the projections. Does that put us in a good position?
If you did what?
So in the police's projections, the way we landed on 4 was not that it immediately needed 4. It was a progression up to 4. And so what the goal of what we were trying to do is pull the police out of the general fund. But if we take it to 10 years, that's 4. If we take it to 5 years, then we can fully pull the police off based off of chief's projections at 3.3 mils.
So we'd be going back to the single source model
Yeah,
that
it would be a single source
trustee,
model, but just
and you
for
guys
5
all
years.
praise.
I told you that we can function with 2.5, the same way that we're functioning.
I'll make a motion.
But I'm saying that it's not a good or recommended way.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to propose a 3.3 mil millage rate for 5 years.
Second. Discussion?
Further discussion?
Would you explain, I sort of saw the 10 years as equaling stability and predictability. And I agree with what Daniel said about, you know, conveying to the voters that we're serious about this and being reluctant to go back after 5 years. 5 years will go by really quickly. Would you tell me what the advantage is of a 5-year term instead of a 10-year term from
Yeah,
your perspective?
a couple of things is, one, hopefully we would plan better, right? Where we had more of a runway, because the first time that this was brought up was the March meeting. And so if we have a 5-year, we have a longer runway to say, we know that we need to start planning. The other thing, and to me the most material thing, is Jody just got here. And I don't feel, and this is my opinion, but I feel like we can go through countless examples where we didn't have a true grasp on what we owe, where it's owed, what we're spending on. Because Jody's uncovering it left and right. Like, she can't come into the room and say, I know exactly our position and where we're hurting. And that's because there was a lack of foundation set. She will be doing that. So in the next 5 years, it's going to be a more smooth process because Jody's gonna know the entire story. We will be able to tell the story to the residents to say that, yes, this is the right number. So to me, I think giving the village an opportunity and the staff an opportunity to reset truly is going to be beneficial. And then when I sit here, and again, I didn't come in with a position, I came here to get educated, and what I'm hearing is like, one group believes that the risk is that funds could be stripped away from the police in an emergency situation. The other risk is we're providing too much unallocated, as of right now, expenses that are available. So by moving to a 5-year, along with building up our narrative to our story and our narrative to the consumers, we are also minimizing the total amount that could be potentially drawn, like that could go into that unallocated amount, right? So I think a 3.3 at 5 years achieves the common ground between all of us sitting here, which is police are entirely funded on their own through this millage, and yet we're minimizing that overall mills number on our residents. And so the other benefit of it is 3.3 is a smaller number to get approved by the residents than a 4.
David, that's much closer to where I think if it's on a 5-year term, because based on the numbers we've been using at 3.3 covers it for definitely for the first couple of years, and might not require any hybriding at all, depending on 3.5 might be totally safer. What's the 3.3 versus 3.5, so that they're both at 3.5? There's some symmetry there. Just curious.
Because that's what.
Oh, was that in the numbers?
This
something you
is
saw?
the police's projections.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second on that?
Yeah, I think already.
Oh, Jeff, sorry, Jeff seconded that. I apologize.
Did Jody have something to say?
It was just on that one, to clarify of what the mills were needed for the police, it, in that last year is 3.4. It's 3.1, for this, the first year, which will actually not be next year. We won't receive a new millage for next year yet, so it will be a whole another following fiscal year would start at 3.1. It would then go to 3.3 until the last year of the millage, which it would be at 3.4. And that does not account for any overrides.
Yeah.
So we could do 3.3 because we currently have a 0.37 mils.
No, this replaces it.
We're replacing it.
It has to replace it?
I think it's cleaner too.
Okay.
If we pull the whole amount, so is it always up to that amount?
It'll be the max.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, my position has been certainty. I want to know that, I want residents to be able to calculate, this will be the impact to me personally on my tax bill. My issue with the possibility of going to 4 is that it's a variable amount. I want people to be able to plan what it is that they can anticipate paying in taxes next year. So if this gives us a position to say that and gives you enough room to plan, and we've got 5 years to stabilize, and it gives us some extra room, my position is I want certainty, as much certainty as we can give to residents to say, this will be the impact for you next year, or years following.
Yeah, so 4 mils over 10 years is the same. It means that we fully fund the police department out of a police millage. And that is restricted, and every future council for the next 5 years can only use that money for the police department.
Correct.
So all the salaries, all the budget increases, the contracts, the, overhead, the additional, the training, that fully funds the budget that we have. So, okay.
Correct. I'll amend my motion to 3.4.
Second.
Any more discussion?
How many years?
For 5 years.
That approach has us revisiting it in 5 years, which I can understand your concerns, particularly that all of our administration is within their first year and will know a lot more about the village in 5 years. And it does fully fund it, huh?
As much as
Just
4 does. at
No,
10, right?
I understand, I'm saying. So the bigger, so now the concern is just having to do it again in 5 years, which is gonna be obviously another council's concern. Okay? Do we have a motion and a second? Anyone else with discussion? Chief, roll call.
Trustee King,
Yes.
trustee Salaka,
Yes.
trustee Hansen,
Yes.
trustee Ferris,
Yes.
trustee Gates,
Yes.
trustee Sally,
Yes.
President Goldberg.
Yes.
Okay, one little clarification. We have to adopt a resolution
Right.
that effectively says the same thing.
Right.
Right,
So-
so there's a motion there. It
So-
allows the administration to put the number.
You want us to give comments to the ballot language right now as
Yeah,
well, right?
if you've reviewed the language, it's the same language that we had
Mm-hmm.
9 days ago.
Weren't we going to change that? President Goldberg, didn't you ask for the taxable value to be moved up to like 400,000?
I had, and that was just a suggestion. Honestly, as I've thought about it more, I'm thinking maybe the 100,000 is better because it's just so simple and uniform. 400 is, like I was just saying, could be like the average, whereas at 100, anybody could then
Do the math.
take the math, do the
I
math. So
agree.
I take that back. I think the way that at 100 is better.
What
I
is-
see it that way in the
You see it
most.
100, because
Yeah.
people can do
Yeah.
easy math?
I take back that comment.
Okay.
We had discussed whether we were supposed to keep, we wanted to keep in the words "and public safety services," or police protection and police, I have this,
We were gonna limit it, right?
yeah, I just have this concern that the term public safety implies more than police.
What if we put police
Yeah.
protection and operations?
Yeah, I don't care, I don't care any other changes, I just think the words public safety together,
Can we
Police protection
ask-
operations.
Can we ask the former chief?
yeah.
Is public safety too broad a net?
Yes, public safety, in our parlance, usually means police and fire.
That's what I thought.
Okay, so if we put police protection and operations, does that go just to you?
That would work.
Well, he
So,
already has, but not limited to police operations and personnel. We'll just say providing police protection.
And
And if you want to say police services or police safety
Just say
services,
services. We'll just
Services.
strike
Protection and
public
services.
safety. Yeah,
okay, so strike public safety.
right.
Okay.
That works.
And then, is council spelled right, levied by the village council?
No, it's not.
no, it's an I, yeah.
And then,
So we're saying
And then-
3.4 mils. So that 3.711 number has to get fixed to whatever it's,
Roll back.
whatever it is based on using 3.4 as the basis.
oh yeah, because we already have police operations in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Recruitment,
So do you
training,
want to just
police-
say police services? Is that easiest?
providing police
Yes, that's
protection
what-
and services, including but not limited to.
Right, now it goes on.
Do you have a copy of this?
It's fine.
No, I think so, yeah.
Well, whatever they want.
Chief,
They can
sorry,
shorten it.
do you have a copy of this? Is the language to your
You
liking?
looked at the.
Yes, I did see it.
ballot
Okay.
language.
My liking.
Okay.
Just one small other thing. So, or maybe you already flagged that one when you were talking about village council. So on line 3, the last mention of village council is spelled like council as in you, rather than village council.
I think we.
I think
That
we
was
cut,
something
yeah,
you flagged
it's
already,
the
okay.
same one we
Yep,
got
yep, yep.
before, right?
Okay.
This is will this trigger a renegotiation with Bingham Farms?
I haven't really looked at your contract
Okay.
with them. It might, but it shouldn't, yeah. I think
They
the
pay a
assumptions.
percentage of the
and
budget.
numbers-
It's their, what they pay is based on budget, not
Okay.
what we assess.
Okay, I just didn't know if we had to like get
Yeah.
consent or anything.
Could I ask that you read what your decision was that's gonna be on the ballot?
Yeah, in order to adopt it, I think we have to read
Yeah.
it into the record.
We're just making sure there's no like misspellings. And can we circulate this language to residents before the?
Oh, it definitely will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And what are you gonna do if it doesn't get voted in?
Come back and do
Come back
this all
and do it
over
again in
again.
November, maybe.
November, yeah.
We'll have a small window, but we will have a window.
I mean, if the residents wanna come and say that this isn't enough, The residents speak, you do not.
No, agree. I would hope that they would not say that it's not enough and not vote for it. They would still take it and let us figure it out. If people still think it's too much, that's, I could see being, that's a different story. But I would hope someone that supports 4 would still support getting it to 3.3 instead of 0, where it's at right now.
But to Nina's point, I believe there's a council meeting between now and the time the ballot language is due. So if people do want to speak with it, there's 1 day grace. Right? Am I right?
He's
gonna
push
submit
back
it.
on that a little bit.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
gonna submit
okay.
it to
It
the.
does have to get, yeah, it has to get to the county, it's due the 12th, and so you're talking about.
sorry.
Meeting is
Okay.
the 11th, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So
meeting's the 11th, yeah.
I would strongly recommend.
You're not
another special
encouraging
meeting.
that.
Yeah,
All right.
I wouldn't go to
I
that
hear
last
you.
meeting, yeah. You do need approval from the county. We just got one, it took 3 days,
Okay.
so. Give
And this
yourself-
is actually really good because our police contract expires in December 27. So if we need more money, then we know that we need to go back for more money in 5 years, right? Because like a 10-year millage locks us in at a rate. So this actually allows us to contemplate an enhanced police contract. So, you know, if we end up, you know, being like, oh, we need more money for this new police contract that gets us through 2028, we can do that because this is only a 5-year millage. So I think it's great. It takes the certainty and then it fully funds it. And then it allows for a future council to fund a new contract that may be more expensive than the one we have now.
So are we ready to read this? Have we filled out? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I started to fill it out.
Okay.
I
The
think there's
total
some,
numbers, we don't even know them yet, so
Here.
they have to be oh, great. I guess we do have numbers. There we
You want to
go.
read it, David?
we must have a wonderful staff.
That was quick.
Did you just do that?
Here you go. Kieran.
I'm just curious if, for some reason, this effort were to fail in August, what's the timing to get the language on the ballot in November?
You have about 10 days.
10 days
Yeah.
before the election?
No, following the failure.
Oh, so-
Maybe 2 weeks. It's really a matter of when the ballots are printed, and so the county can fluctuate that a little bit, but it's a pretty quick turnaround.
So the election date is,
August 4th,
so 10 days, August 14th?
yeah, sometime mid-August, I'm gonna say, yeah.
And either, whether it passes in August or passes in November, we would still get the taxes the same time.
You're right, collections the following, July?
So doing it in August just gives us a buffer.
Be careful, you gotta look at both.
Yeah.
It gives us a second chance.
Yeah.
So like, what do
They'll
people
definitely have a
normally
second
do? Like if it doesn't pass in August, they like kind of go down a quarter mil or something?
Usually that's the
Yeah.
approach. There's different numbers, obviously, higher turnout likely in November, so that factors into it. But yeah, most communities will pull it back a little bit.
So hopefully it passes.
All right, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is the proposed Village of Franklin Police Services millage language, and then we will have a motion after I read it to approve it as read. Shall the Village of Franklin be authorized to levy an increase of up to 3.4 mils, parentheses, $3.40 per $1,000 of taxable value, on parentheses, on all taxable property within the village for 5 years, beginning in 2027 and expiring in 2031, which if fully levied by the village council, changing the E to an I, would raise up to an estimated $1,675,121 in the first year of the millage. In the first year of the millage, first year of the millage?
Oh yeah, he's missing an of.
I think it's supposed to be 2032.
Sorry,
No, I think it is 31.
it's 31.
27, 28, 29, 30, 31.
28, 29,
In the
30,
first-
31.
So I think we're missing an of.
Yeah,
In the
but the
first
of-
year
I think of,
of
you're
the
right.
millage,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Of
first
the
year
millage.
of the millage, that's right.
for the purpose of providing police protection and services, including but not limited to police operations and personnel costs, recruitment and training, police vehicles and equipment, technology and communications systems, building and facility improvements, capital improvements, and payment of unfunded accrued pension liabilities and other post-employment benefit obligations related to police personnel. And that's a question. Next paragraph. If approved, this new additional millage would be levied in lieu of and in replacement of the village's existing police services millage, originally authorized at .3802 mils and currently levied at .3711 mils, after reduction as required by the Michigan Constitution. It is estimated that this proposal would result in the authorization to collect approximately $1,675,121 in the first year if approved and levied. For example, a property with a taxable value of $100,000 would be taxed up to $340 annually. If everybody's comfortable with that, we need a motion to approve the resolution to place on the August 4th, 2026 ballot a new police services millage of up to 3.4 mils for a period of 5 years, and direct the administration to finalize and certify the resolution consistent with and any minor clarifications or revisions deemed necessary by the village administrator and attorney.
So moved.
I'll second.
I think Jeff seconded, right?
Oh, you did?
No, this is, no.
Oh.
It's fine.
Yeah, we already, your motion passed on the amount,
Yeah.
and then.
And I seconded
and you-
David's.
Yep,
Yeah.
we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further comments on this?
So that gives us, that money that we normally transfer out to the police, that like 1.4 million, we won't have to transfer out anymore.
No, we still, I assume that the village is collecting it? I don't know.
It's a budget decision. It's not really,
Yeah.
it's.
Not material.
It requires a lot more discussion than.
Okay. Yeah. As long as you remember that we have to have that discussion.
Any further discussion? Chief, let's do a roll call on this one, too.
Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Salaka?
Yes?
Trustee Hansen?
Yes.
Trustee Ferris?
Yes.
Trustee Gates?
Yes.
Trustee Sally?
Yes.
President Goldberg?
Yes. All right, guys, good job. We had to come to a good resolution, a fair resolution that we all compromised on.
There's one more agenda item. I
Yep.
think Angelina
Yep.
wanted to
Yep.
talk about
Sorry.
something.
So our last item is, we had discussed it briefly. We do, Angelina raised a very good point. This is one of the unique situations that we've had here in a while where we had a trustee resign in essentially the first 2 years of his or her term, therefore triggering the section of the charter that requires the person's seat to be replaced by an election at the next available election. So we had a discussion initially, and I guess we'll still need a motion to ask that the village attorney determine how the replacement seat is to be handled at the 2026 election for trustee Seltzer's former seat.
Didn't we already do that motion?
No, we just put it on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So now we got to vote on the actual motion itself. If we need any further discussion, otherwise, someone just say I make that motion. and
Make
someone
that
second it.
motion to have the village attorney prepare that opinion.
So we have a motion by King,
Second.
second by Gates. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, yeah, so Dan, let us know how
Okay.
that needs to be done, and if it has to be a unique situation, although it doesn't have, we won't have to worry about this until the November election, but it'll be unique for our residents for the first time to see, well, maybe not for the first time, but to see two different seats available, a
Right.
4-year and a 2-year term.
And that means whoever wants to run has
Would
to
have to
decide
declare.
by July whether they're running for a 2-year seat or a 4-year seat.
Right.
It typically would just be the remainder of the existing term, not, just
Yeah.
hopping with the same So if it's a 2-year seat and there's only 1 year left of it, you would run for a 1-year seat.
Right, it's a 4-year seat, and there, in that election, there'll be 2 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Then it goes back to 4.
Yeah, then it goes back to 4.
Yes.
So you're concerned that it could become a 5 and 2 will never happen?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It wasn't the intent of the drafters and
No,
the
I don't
charter.
think it was. And you're right, the charter doesn't address the unique situation of how do you handle that election.
Yeah, it doesn't change the terms, it just does the remainder of the term and then the term goes
Yeah,
back.
so
to
like the
normal.
point is to try to sync it back
I mean,
up.
I guess the only other thing
My
would
son's not
be
an
is you
attorney.
would have the
I have
4,
no
I guess the only other thing would be, and we could make it that way when the time comes, is say it's the 4 highest winners, the 4 highest vote getters, and the lowest vote getter gets the 2-year term, but that would not allow people to know who they were voting for.
And that's against the charter.
That might
This
be.
has happened before.
It has?
Oh, yeah.
And we had it where it was for 2 years and 4 years?
We've had people resign in midterm, and we filled them. I just don't remember what the process is, which I'm glad to support this, but this is not unusual.
So
No,
if
but
Peter
Angelina's absolutely
prepared
right.
an opinion about, you know, it being up, or whatever he did work on it, just share it with him.
Well, the first is to concur that we're reading the charter correctly, that it does have to be voted
Yeah,
on at the
yeah.
next election, being that it
Yeah,
occurs
because
less
Jeff could
than
be
40
sitting here for
days.
2 years.
Right. And then the question is then, how do we effectuate that vote? And do we have to, and I think we all have to and would like to have it clear on the ballot as well as for those applying, that you can either apply for the remainder of the 2-year term and have to run again in 2 years, or apply for the 4-year term. That's pretty simple. Okay?
I hate to do this. Is there any way that I can add a council, or a planning commission has a question that I would like to see clarity on?
Yeah, if it's just a liaison issue, yeah.
Yeah. There was one of the items around the nuisance ordinance was around commercial vehicles. And I had raised that there is a discrepancy between how we choose to define a commercial vehicle, which is, do they have a commercial solicitation on a standard, like a standard vehicle compared to something that requires a commercial license? And so, again, that's really a policy decision for us rather than for the planning commission. And so I want to be able to collect that feedback to take back for their discussion.
It's not like a legal definition thing.
Well, I think ultimately, no, because legal definition is whatever we choose it to be. Right, they are creating an ordinance to regulate
They're
this.
commercial plates.
But we can still make an ordinance that would describe commercial vehicle to mean a specific thing that we're regulating.
I believe there is some language around that in the ordinance now. I remember talking to Stuart, and his concern was basically discriminating against people who make their money.
So personally,
You know,
Stuart and I have,
using their eyes,
I believe
yeah.
Stuart and I have the same opinion. My
Yeah.
opinion is I don't want to inhibit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll
so.
say, you don't have to. I agree with Stuart.
Yeah, exactly. I had raised it because I was like, I don't know that I really want to interfere with how somebody makes their living. As far as like, I just, for me, I understand not wanting a commercially licensed vehicle hanging out in somebody's driveway or elsewhere. But to me, somebody who probably drives this vehicle in the day-to-day and it just happens to promote their business, I personally know where I stand, so I wanted to bring it back to the rest of council.
So do you want to take a vote on it?
No, there's no vote to be taken,
Oh.
I just want to understand where
I
everybody's
personally
at.
agree with you that just because a guy's got a van or a woman, I don't want to discriminate in that regard, but somebody has a truck and it's a regular vehicle that the average person would drive on a day-to-day basis, but they just happen to have a sticker on it that advertises their business, I don't have a problem with that. And the ordinance seems to have focused on the language on the vehicle as opposed to the size of the vehicle. Now, if that same guy wants to do it in a full-blown FedEx-sized truck and park that in his driveway and says, that's what I drive to work every day.
Right.
So maybe it gets tied into size and
Yeah.
weight as opposed to just because there's
Exactly.
advertising.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Of my experience with that. So this has come up several times during my tenure as chief and probably during Kurt's as well. Where I saw this a lot was with landscaping businesses and snowplows in particular. Got a number of complaints from residents about individual people that ran snowplow businesses that would park their plows, have their entire staff park their plows in their driveway overnight during the winter, and so therefore it looked like a giant parking lot of commercial vehicles parked out there. And so that's where I think a lot of this might be coming from, is from those residents that live near that and have to look at it every day. So I just wanted to say
Private
something.
citizen Roberts, are you gonna come to more of our council meetings?
I will if you need me to, if it fits within my golf game.
I think that was an issue. We've got a couple of people who do that, and that's caused consternation in their neighborhoods. That was some pressure on the other end of that.
Got it. Yeah, so I think taking this away, some things to evaluate is maybe restricting the number of vehicles to address that concern as well as the size. So,
I agree with that.
okay.
Great.
Can I make one more comment? I feel it important. So just as a member of the Village Council, I want to recognize April is Autism Awareness Month. This is a time to increase understanding, celebrate the strengths and contributions of individuals on the autism spectrum, and reaffirm our commitment to building a more inclusive and supportive community for all. By working together with compassion and respect, we can ensure that every resident feels valued, heard, empowered to thrive. I just wanted to take the opportunity to make that statement because I know the last time that we had met during April, I think we were all exhausted by the end of it. It was a very long meeting. And so wanted to make sure that we highlight the fact that it is Autism Awareness Month.
Thank you for that, David. Appreciate that.
Can I say one more thing too? I think if we are gonna have 4 council seats up for election, our sign ordinance only permits 3 signs. And so we might wanna look into updating that number, so that way, I mean, I have 4 kids, so I can't even put a sign for each of my kid on my lawn, but I think that needs to be looked at. Because I know that it really only gets enforced during election season. And if residents are voting for 4 council members, I see it aligned that they're allowed to have 4 signs on their lawn.
Why don't we bring it to legal committee?
Yeah.
Is that legal or is it planning?
Just as far as an agenda item.
Oh, yeah, just put it on an agenda item.
You're probably gonna want me to look at it. I'm not, how long has this ordinance been around?
Oh, well, it got updated because the Supreme Court decision about
Case?
content.
Okay, as long as it's been updated.
It has.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're total non-content based.
we're in
Yeah,
line with
okay.
SCOTUS,
Yeah.
but we're not, we're still at 3.
All right, so it's just a policy decision.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, the 3 was theoretically an arbitrary number.
Well, it's
Right.
3 unless you live on a corner, and then it's 4. So it's like, do you have a big lot, you can support 4 people. If you have
Well,
a smaller lot, you can only
two
support 3.
frontages. That's the issue.
Yeah.
But again, I was on planning when that was vetted out, that the number was probably 3 months discussion. Settle on that, if
So we
not
should
more.
probably start now.
If not more, just to come to the number. So that's fine, it can certainly be revisited.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anybody else?
Motion to adjourn?
A second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?